Hello and welcome to the next video of my Hall of Fame series, where I'm going to be giving you the players that have been voted on by the Discord to be elected into the ADE Discord Hall of Fame for LOL Esports. If you didn't watch the Marin video, that's already up on the channel. There will be a playlist eventually. And on the Discord, these links are posted to these videos. If you'd like to participate because you don't agree with who is in the Hall of Fame, join the Discord, make your vote known. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, if you are aware that the voting's going on and then you choose not to vote, that is your vote. And just like that, you've chose to put a gag in your mouth as far as I'm concerned, or unplugged your keyboard, or done whatever. Because voting is not all that hard, and there are rules to it on the Discord. The third class is being voted on right now as I make this video, and that's because the second class was announced this past weekend on the Discord. So if you'd like to participate, that's there. I am recording, which is good. So Bengi, an OG player. We talked about Marin, an older player when he started in his early to mid-20s. Bengi was 19 years old for his first year. He played from 2013 to 2017 and accumulated 233.14 Hall of Fame points. That is something that I have done that's influenced by the Hall of Fame monitor and Hall of Fame point system that the sport reference websites do. I think that's a very interesting way to look at it and utilize stats to determine the best players. So that's how I've done it. I've given all domestic results the same value, in that if you win LLA and you win the LCK, you get the same amount of points for that. Obviously, this takes into account a bunch of other stats, not just winning your region. But for example, if you did something in Latin America, you did something in the LCK, it's considered equal. Then internationally, that's where things become different. If you win Worlds versus dropping out in play-ins, the value of winning Worlds is more than, the value of dropping out of play-ins is worth less than 10% of winning Worlds. So that's kind of where the difference ends up lying. So Bengi is a three-time world champion, and we'll get into that. One of the very few, obviously, because only SKT was able to really pull that off. His three most played champions, Lee Sin, Elise, and Jarvan. That accounts for roughly 43% of his games played. In his career, I utilized Leaguepedia and GameOfLegend.gg for these stats. So keep in mind, sometimes there is discrepancies between those two websites, but that is what I utilized for my stats and data farming. Highest win rate in his career, Olaf at 85%. 85% win rate on Olaf for Bengi. That was his best champion in that regard. It ranks third in win rate based on how many games he played on it. So two players have a higher win rate and more games played on Olaf in the jungle than he does. Nunu, 79% win rate. That is his second strongest champion. Nunu's stats on Leaguepedia are scuffed, so I cannot determine, where it ranks. In Game of Legend does not go all the way back to 2013, so I can't use Nunu's stuff there. Third is Rek'Sai, 74% win rate, and that is second all time. He played a lot of Rek'Sai in his career. Only one player has more Rek'Sai games and a higher win rate than Bengi. In terms of KDA, it's the same three champions. Nunu, 5.47 was his best KDA. I also only list champions that he played at least roughly double-digit amount of times. Rek'Sai, 5.13, ranks fifth all time. So four players have played more Rek'Sai games and have a better KDA. And then Olaf, 4.93, is fourth. So clearly, Olaf, Rek'Sai, Nunu were his three most successful champions, despite, his World skins being what they are. Now, like I said, started his career at 19 years old in the LCK, playing for SKT2, I believe. In spring of 2013, he played 20 games, had a 4.47 KDA and a 2.75 CS per minute. Both of those were second place in the region. We have to keep in mind, this was a long time ago, 10 years ago. Players played differently. Clearly, these are glorified support numbers, and that's what a jungler was at the time. They were not a carry. So, and honestly, I'm going to get into how maybe that's why Bengi's career didn't last as long as many would have liked, and why his time with SKT ended, because I don't think he really adapted to how the game changed. In summer of 2013, he'd play 18 games and put up the best KDA at 6.41. In the playoffs, they would win all four, well, they'd play 4 games. 408 KDA, 297 CS per minute. That would lock the world slot where he would go with SKT. Playing 18 games, putting up the best KDA out of all the junglers, 6.24. CS per minute, 3.1. 69.9 KP in the win. His 2013 resulted in 63.41 Hall of Fame points. In 2020, they would have a relatively down year. We went over this with Marin. That was his rookie year. But in winter, so it was split up into 3 at the time. In winter, he played 15 games, had the best KDA out of all junglers, 6.58, 2.63 CS per minute. In spring, in 11 games, there was a drop-off, only 2.94 KDA and 2.95 CS per minute. So it was the first time in his career he had under 3 KDA. In 2014 summer, he would play 10 games, 318 KDA, 314 CS per minute. That would get him an opportunity in the Champions playoffs to have a chance to go to Worlds. However, he would struggle a lot. In 7 games, putting up a 1.27 KDA and a 2.72 CS per minute. He had under 6 Hall of Fame points for 2014. It was, very rough for him. Things would return back to normal in 2015, however, as SKT, went on to win Worlds for a second time in 3 years. In spring, he played 10 games in the preseason tournament for a 6.23 KDA, 301 CS per minute, 71.7 KP. In the spring split in 26 games, he had a 308 KDA, 272 CS per minute, 68.3 KP. So really close to his 2014 summer numbers, really. Around a 3 KDA and 3 CS per minute. In spring playoffs, they would go 3-0, winning LCK Spring to be able to go to MSI. In those 3 games, he absolutely crushed it. I think he played Rek'Sai in all 3. 8.43 KDA, 326 CS per minute, 84.3 KP. So 84% of SKT's kills were as a result of Bengi being involved. At MSI 2015 in 15 games, he had a 357 KDA, 308 CS per minute, 72.3 KP. 275 damage per minute, 13.3 damage share, 18.3 gold share, 1 solo kill. None of that ranked highly across junglers at that event. Like I said, in 2015, I think it started coming to a head that, if this meta starts to shift, Bengi is not going to be as impactful, if you will. In 2015 summer, SKT would win again. In 35 games played, Bengi had the second best KDA at 5.5 amongst junglers. 3 CS per minute, 65.8 KP, 264 damage per minute. In 3 games in playoffs, I believe he played Elise in all 3 in this one. He would win a 4.9 KDA, 3.4 CS per minute, 58 KP. So very different than the spring playoffs. Spring playoffs, 84 KP. Summer, 58. A lot less involved. 327 damage per minute, 15.9 damage share, 18.3 gold share. So really that secondary support in both damage and gold. kind of just filling out the composition, which makes sense given the champions. He played a lot of elites, a lot of J4, Rek'Sai, Nunu, things like that. You don't expect those to be carries. At Worlds 2015, in 16 games, he had a 5.8 KDA, which ranked second amongst junglers at the event, 2.9 CS per minute, 65.3 KP, 241 damage per minute, 11.9 damage share, so even less impactful in the damage numbers than he was in the LCK split. 17.2 gold share, 1 solo kill in those 16 games. That resulted in a 96.11 Hall of Fame rating, points or whatever, which is 20 less than what Marin had, but you have to keep in mind Marin had more stats because Bengi was a glorified support. So that's kind of how that ends up translating on this in the whole stats deal. But that was his second Worlds in 3 years. It's just like didn't feel he really adapted all that well. The CS per minute very low. Now, when you look at it ranked against everybody else, is it extremely low? It was on the lower end of things. There were some of these events in 2015 and 2016 where he was last in the dealing the damage, getting gold, CS and all that, like last place. So really didn't adapt, and maybe that's coaching as well. The coach not adapting to where the meta is going because the team's doing so well. Obviously they're winning games, but clearly SKT decided to go in another direction, and that's when we will go to the next board. As I was saying, in 2016 SKT decided to go in another direction. They bring in Blank to play in the jungle alongside Bengi. Bengi does actually, he takes a back seat. He doesn't play as the starter in either of the splits, including the 2016 summer playoffs. He played 17 games in spring, had a 3.4 KDA, 3.8 CS per minute, 63.8 KP, so very low, 64%, less than 2 of every 3 kills. 268 damage per minute, 12.6 damage share, 17.7 gold share, 2 solo kills in those 17 games. In summer, it did not get any better. He only played 14 games. Similar stats, 3.5 KDA, 4.1 CS per minute, 70.9 KP, so much more involved. 327 damage per minute, 14.4 damage share, 19 gold share, which is the highest at any point in his career. He was able to, get a little bit better in the gold department. Maybe the pressure of Blank being there helped. Blank currently plays in Japan still, eventually leaving Korea and playing in the LJL as a former world champion. It's interesting. And then at Worlds, they end up splitting 50-50, which is interesting because in summer playoffs, Blank played all the games. So when Worlds comes around, they play 20 games as a team and both play 10. And Bengi's numbers were pretty good. Had a 5.8 KDA. That ranks second amongst junglers at the event. So he made sure he stayed alive. 4.3 CS per minute was low, though. 65 KP, so not as involved, which helps in the not dying department. 349 damage per minute, 14.9 damage share, 18.5 gold share. 3 solo kills in 10 games, which ranked second amongst junglers at the event, and he only played in half the games. So I think Ambition had 5 and led the way, if I recall. So with that in mind, if Bengi had played all 20, maybe he ends up leading in that department, and maybe things are a lot different for him. 63.41 Hall of Fame points because he didn't play a lot versus the year before. Now, at 23 years old, Bengi would leave the LCK and go to the LPL, and he would play in only one split for the LPL, Vici Gaming. In 2017 spring, he played in 35 games and had the worst split of his career, reminiscent of how we talked about Marin leaving SKT after 2015 and going to LGD and, laying an egg. 2.4 KDA, 4.4 CS per minute, only 55.6 KP. So he's dying more than he's ever died in his career, and he's less involved than he's ever been in his career. So just a very poor showing out of Bengi, and then he was done. 23 years old. He never played again after that in pro region. So, well, not pro region, but in organized activity to end up in, on the board. 4.34 Hall of Fame points to end his career. Obviously, only played 5 seasons. Very short career. I mean, hell, Marin's career started when Bengi's ended in terms of age. Bengi's career definitely ending too soon. Currently T1's coach, formerly SKT, now T1. And that is a separate voting category entirely. We do not consider the coaching results as part of the player results when we do this. Just like traditional sports, players and coaches will be voted in separately if they go from one, source of employment to another, if you will. But Bengi obviously is considered one of the best junglers of all time. Was elite at the time of his career when he played. A very different time than now. Comment down below with your opinions. If you want to vote, the voting is going on the Discord right now. If you watch this, these videos, frankly, should have a long tail on them because they're not time sensitive. So if you're watching this like a while from now, the voting may have stopped. If it's like 6 months from now. Well, actually 6 months from now we'll have the 13th class, and then at that point I'll be caught up and I'll only do one a year, one voting period a year. So we'll see what happens. Or maybe every 6 months. I haven't decided yet. Either way, join the Discord if you want to vote. The 60 players nominated for the third class are there. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord. Like I just said, geez. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Become a YouTube supporter. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.